What about the role of the courts? I mean, there's also the industrial court, which it doesn't seem like it ever gets used, or if it's used, people don't tend to abide by the decisions of the industrial court.
Now that is the problem. The present action of strikes are not issues of interest, but issues of right. Right in the sense that we have agreed. So what will the court adjudicate on? What? If it was issues of interest in which there were disagreements at the table, of course, they could adjudicate.
What do you also say about suspension? I mean, oftentimes what you get to hear is the strike has been suspended. What we've been told about ASU going on this particular strike was that it simply started the strike and said, well, it's a continuation of where they left off the last time, and it did not need to, go through any new process to start this particular one. What do you also make of that?
I want to avoid holding brief for ASU. I'm not their lawyer or their negotiator.
Yeah, but what do you, aside that, I'm just thinking of, oftentimes what you get to hear from the trade unions, whether ASU or NUC or NLC, beg your pardon, what you get to hear is this strike has been suspended. It seems like it's a sledgehammer hanging, no. And if you just don't do what we say you should do, we're going to drop the sledgehammer again.
You see, again, start from the point of view of that the trade unions and their leaders are not irrational human beings. They have constituencies, and they must reflect at all times the aspirations and the mandate of their rank and file members, and balance this with the national interest. The two government. That being the case, you suspend an action to allow for a cooling period, oftentimes at the level of negotiating a demand. But the cases now you have are not issues of agreement or non-agreement. There exist agreements. So our concern should be, how do we get all the parties to now say, okay, do we address this issue of implementation anew? And if that should be the case, there should be enough manifested sincerity of purpose. And I believe too that, given the character of the combatants now, the government on one side, the academic staff or the academic community on one side, there are different methods you can apply that at the end of the day, they could work out a mutually acceptable and beneficial implementation modalities.
When you talked about perhaps getting professional independent negotiators from both parties.
No, arbitrators, not negotiators.
Arbitrators?
Yeah.
What if they get negotiators?
Well, you cannot negotiate for parties on their behalf when you are not a part of them. But you can arbitrate. And in which case, it's a technique that the two parties or the combatants will appoint. If you say 6 or 7, you bring 3, you bring 3. But they're independent people. Which means that you are prepared to submit yourself to recommendations or proposals. And of course, they have to do some shuffling.
Well, what is the difference between that and a court?
Yeah. Well, a court makes an order. And mind you, a court can make an order in vain. In this case, what order will they make? Go and implement. Which is the point in dispute.
No, but part of the challenge is also negotiation. And you say it has to be arbitration. You cannot negotiate when you're not part of that. Do you have to be part of them? But you're a professional. You're a public service negotiator.
You see, I do because I'm part of the public service. My own union is there. And if I'm invited, I'm negotiating from the point of view of interest, not from point of contract. No. So, but if you have arbitrators who both sides agree that X, that can represent our interest, the two government, and they sit down, they have one thing in common: the interest of the country. That is primary. Influenced equally by the interest of the parties that they represent. You say, okay, we give you just 1 week. Give us modalities that will be mutually acceptable on implementation, not to negotiate new agreement or to renegotiate the agreement that has problems on implementation.
When it also comes to, when it boils down to something as basic as funding, as fundamental as funding, if the federal government is saying, well, or an employer is saying, I'm putting my books before you, I really cannot afford this, as you think I can, What happens in that particular instance if Labour still believes the government can and government is not being sincere enough?
Well, if an employer does that, don't forget that that employer has other things to negotiate in future. That is negotiated in bad faith. Before you share the agreement, you are sure that what you are agreeing upon is affordable. And it reflects very incompetent employer. If you have social conscience, as you negotiate with in liberty. You are not forced to. But our problem is that we only negotiate when there is crisis. That's why I say the private sector. I'm not saying that they are ideal. Again, they are not homogeneous in any sense, but at least the organized private sector. They have time-tested procedures. Every 3 years or every 4 years, an agreement will expire. We negotiate. 6 month iteration will start. But you see, in the public sector, again, there is this confusion of merging the role of government as employer and as the authority of the entire country.
You think it should be separated?
Of course, they are different things.
Is it possible to separate?
You can sue a government on contract. But you see, in our own case, because we have this idea that that politics is power. Power over whom? Over whom?
Isn't politics power?
Well, power over whom?
Yeah, but isn't it power?
It is power, yes, but over whom? But you are an employer in your own right. And it pays you to have employees who have trust in you.
All right. Mr. Sylvester Ejiofor is a public service negotiator. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you so much.